Yeah, I think you did great on that because look at everything you're running into. I mean, you had a lot of stuff behind you, so there's a really good chance it's going to pull it down to it, and a really good chance it's not going to go through it. It did go through it, but you did just great trailing that, I think. And I did not even catch that entry. Like you, yeah, because you had that. You had a lot of stuff there. Yeah, you were smart to get out when you did, I think, or to protect where you did. Did he? Okay, if you're looking at that screenshot that you just put up there, Donnelly, I'm going to go over just a little bit of another way you could have trailed it. If you're going down and you trailed it down, you did a very good job going to that ZOI area, the bottom of it, where you've got your black dotted line is, or dashed line is a mini magnet from the 30. So if you would have been, I mean, here's a little bit more aggressive. Okay, if you would have waited until that was tested, which would have been the 1051.21 bar, your arrow is over it, so you can't really see it in that screenshot, but it's the one that's your most bottom arrow on the right side of that price action where it says target trail 50 tick mini magnet. It's covering up a mini magnet there. And so that mini magnet tested that previous mini magnet. That wick on that bar. So you're looking at the 1051.21 bar tested that mini magnet with a wick, and it went on down. So that is where you could pull your stop down. After it tested it, you could pull your stop down to just in front of that, just above that mini magnet. It would have been about 15, 25, 425. And then it came down, and your next thing is a ZOI, which was never tested. Okay, so leave your stop up there. Then you had a mini magnet at 15,248.25. You had an old mini magnet that this price action broke with the 1051.21 bar on NQ. So you see how it broke that mini magnet, okay? And a couple bars later, on the 1051.29 bar, the wick came up and tested that broken mini magnet level. Okay, you see where it broke that? But it didn't leave a mini magnet. It didn't leave anything. So I would have loved it better if it laid a mini magnet closing that gap, but it didn't. It left it open. But the trick here is it tested it. So now you could move your stop down to 2 ticks above that mini magnet, which would be, let's see, 248, about 50 is the mini magnet-ish, so you could put it up at about 249 and protect a little more profit. Okay, then we came down a little bit more, a 1051.38 bar, laid a mini magnet on the wall. Okay, that's not really testing anything except the mini magnet. So I'm just going to leave my stop where it is, and then it comes on down, and then it peaks down at 1052.30, retraces a little bit, and at that retrace, 1052.45, it laid a cluster, it laid a ZOI that formed a crash. So that's kind of like a line in the sand, and it's either going to chop around it, or it's going to use that as a level and go one direction or the other. So you're thinking, yeah, how do you know what it's going to do? Well, you don't at that point. So at that point where I have that crash, I'm going to bring my stop down and put it right above the mini magnet at 244.75. Because it didn't test it, but it did lay a crash, so it laid in a significant thing under it. So I'm looking for that crash to be tested now. Crash was tested on the 1054.00 bar. Okay? So now it's tested, the crash is tested, and once it moves away from it, I'm going to put my stop above that crash at 15,239.50. Okay, because it's tested that crash. I want to give it a couple ticks. You know, might have been 450. Okay, wait a minute. 240. It's going to be at 15,240. Sorry, I think I said the wrong number there. My stop's going to be there, and you're just going to let it go. So what happens then is it lays a mini magnet and a crash again on the 1054.52 bar. That becomes my new area of interest. What's it going to do? I'm going to wait for that one to be tested. And then it lays a mini magnet right below it, and I would be thinking by this point, oh gosh, 2 mini magnets in a row. They're almost forming a burger, but it's a little spread out. And then it lays another crash down below that at about the 15,225 level. So at this point, I'm going to be thinking, ooh, it looks like it's going to be choppy in here. If it goes back up, we're looking at possible chop. Okay, so from here, if you want to get conservative, you could put your stock right above that mini magnet and ZOI, and it's kind of a crash there. You could put it just above that and protect everything up to that point, or you could leave it where it was, which is above that other crash. So there's two different, which way do you want to give? Are you going to give it more room, or are you going to just tighten in your profits there? Got two options. And so then, if you left it by the crash, you're out as it's going up. If you left it by the lower crash, sorry, there's two crashes you're leaving it. Your choices are leaving it by the upper or the lower crash. And the lower crash gets broken. And then it lays that mini magnet, and the mini magnet's on the 30 and the 10, and you're messing around there, and it came up. It did not come up and get your stop at the 40-ish level. So if you're giving it room, you've got that still in play. If you're not stopped out by now. And then you've got this new mini magnet at 33.50. It goes on down. We expected chop ahead of time because that wasn't a really nice tight burger there with the mini magnets on either side of the COI. So it was really tight. I mean, it wasn't really tight. You want it really tight. That forms a better level. It was not tight. And so you had that mini magnet below it. You had a couple mini magnets that were existing that one got broke, one didn't. You got a lot of stuff there in a small space, but it's not forming a stack. It's forming a mess. So at this point, if you're sitting through the chop, it lays another crash at the 29.50 price level, and then it finally goes down and breaks through all that. So at that point, I'm going to bring my stop down to the 34.25 level because it laid another crash below it. That new crash is where I'm going to wait for it to be tested. So when it went down, it didn't test anything. It left a lot of stuff. But then once you pass that mini magnet at 20.25, you've got clear sailing. It's not laying new order prints as it goes. It's really zipping down there. So then I'm definitely going to bring my stop down and have it at 30.25 at the highest for me. And then it comes back up, retraces, and that's where I like where it had that mini magnet at 15,222.75. It was laying another mini magnet where it was closing a gap hole, patching a hole from the where it broke the mini magnet at 1055.02. So it laid another one. And it went down, and the first mini magnet it laid was way the heck down there at 11 o'clock on the dot. that it could be turning around. Then it came down, okay, and it wanted to chop, and it laid another mini magnet at the 11 o'clock and 34-second bar. That one was concerning to me because it came up and laid another mini magnet. It was under the first one. It's kind of like enforcing that one. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, if this one doesn't hold, we're okay. But if it goes past the next one, we're done. It's going to reverse. So as it goes back down again, lays a ZOI and then a cluster on that ZOI, that was a little nerve-wracking to me because usually if it lays a cluster on a ZOI and it had a star, it actually had an SLZ with no level. Okay, so to me that's alarming that it could be thinking about reversing, but it's not giving me a lot of indication yet, so I'm still in. My stop is up at about 210. So I'm protecting profit. I'm not going to let it go up past that. Then it came up on the 11:01:16 bar, and it hit that mini magnet. And I was like, okay, and it stopped, but I don't like where it put the cluster. It was just in the middle of nowhere, and it went on down. So then I pulled my stop to just above that mini magnet because it's been tested. That mini magnet was tested and held. So if it comes back and tests it again, I do not want to be there. I don't trust that it won't just bust through it the next time. So the first time it bounced off it, great. I thought about even shoving the stop down there, but I'm like, nah, I'm going to let it go to round number. I'm going to try really hard. And I had it literally one tick above, which I usually do take two, but this time I did one tick above that mini magnet that it just tested. So when it came back up and hit that mini magnet, I was out. The mini magnet at 15206.75. So everybody asks how I trail. Well, that's how I trailed. I hid behind the tested order print line, which was that mini magnet. If I wanted to give it more room, I would have hid behind the one up above because it can always hit that and then go back down. So I want to give it a little bit of space. But at that point, it's really chopping. And I'm thinking it's really chopping and it's going to go one way or the other. It's going to either zip down or zip up. And I don't really care which it does because my profit was okay. And if it stopped me out, that was okay. But I wasn't going to give up too much if it didn't. And then once it went up, I was already out, but then once it went up at the 15208 magnet, and you can see it went a little past it, came down, laid a mini magnet and closed that hole, I was like, yep, I don't care. I am glad I'm out. This puppy's going up. I can wait and ride that down to Ron's level if another setup comes in. So that's, people always ask me how I trail. Well, that's what was going through my mind when I was trailing. And the entry that I took was not a valid sniper, but it was big HD, which I love. And it was everything minus the Xbox. And it had the tracked orders. It had the mini magnet. It had the mini magnet on the 30. It had a cluster on the ZOI. I'm not saying it's a good thing to take not true setups, but after all these years trading it, I have to trust what I see sometimes. To me, there's not a lot of detail to go into. I wait until some order print has been tested, then I hide behind it. And that's what I did when it laid that second mini magnet. It came up on the 11:01:16. It tested it. That mini magnet held, so I hid right there tight behind it. Normally I give it 2 ticks or 3 ticks behind it so it can move a little bit. But this time when it laid that cluster on the ZOI with the SLZ, I was like, yeah, no, I'm not comfortable with this anymore. So there you go. So just kind of going through, I mean, you guys asked me about my stops or my trailing and how I'm going to do it, how I do it. And so now you got it.